The phase in my life when I thought the highest form of love was approval, and the greatest achievement was to be accepted by everyone around me. I thought if I could just keep everyone happy, I would finally feel at peace. I thought if I kept saying yes, if I kept smiling, if I kept giving, surely someone would notice my efforts and maybe, just maybe, they would give me a place in their heart. So I kept pleasing, I kept bending, I kept molding myself into what others needed, what they expected, what made them comfortable. But in doing all of that, I slowly disappeared. I didn't even realize it at first. It was so subtle. It started with small compromises, a choice here, a word there, silencing my voice in conversations, not because I had nothing to say, but because I feared being misunderstood or judged, saying yes to things that made me uncomfortable. Only because I didn't want to be seen as difficult or selfish. And then one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. She was tired, not just physically exhausted, but emotionally drained. Her eyes had stopped sparkling. Her laughter was now rehearsed. Her smile, it looked beautiful on the outside, but it no longer reached her soul. And that was the moment something inside me cracked. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way. It was quiet, painfully quiet. But I felt it. I felt the weight of years spent carrying the expectations of others, the burden of never feeling good enough, despite doing everything I could to be accepted. The heartbreak of being surrounded by people yet feeling completely unseen. And I started asking myself questions I had been avoiding for years. Why was I trying so hard to be loved by everyone? Why did I believe that their approval was more important than my peace? Why was I so afraid of disappointing others, even when it meant betraying myself? I realized I had placed other people's comfort above my own worth. I had equated being agreeable with being valuable, and that belief, it was killing me, slowly, not in a way that others could see, but in ways that only I could feel, in the quietest moments of the night when I was alone with my thoughts. I remembered the times when I had dreams, big, bold dreams, that scared me in the best way possible. I remembered the girl who used to speak with fire in her heart and hope in her eyes. But somewhere along the way, she faded. She became someone else, someone who constantly second-guessed herself, someone who feared taking up space, someone who believed her needs were a burden. And the irony is, no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. No matter how much I pleased, there was always someone who felt something to criticize. There was always someone who felt I could have done more, been more, changed more. That's the illusion of trying to please everyone. It's a race with no finish line, a hunger that's never satisfied, a cycle that keeps taking and taking until there's nothing left of you. I learned that people's opinions are fleeting. Their love is often conditional. Today they praise you, tomorrow they'll question you. Today they call you kind, tomorrow they say you're too soft. You can do everything right and still be too much for some and not enough for others. And the truth is, that has nothing to do with you. It's a reflection of them, not of your worth. But we internalize it, don't we? We begin to believe that we are the problem. That maybe if we tried a little harder, gave a little more, changed a little further, we'd finally be enough. But that's a dangerous path to walk. Because the more you abandon yourself to please others, the more you abandon yourself, and eventually you start performing instead of living. You start existing instead of thriving. I remember a moment when someone I deeply cared about looked at me and said, "You're always trying to make everyone happy. Why don't you ever choose yourself?" And I didn't have an answer, because for the longest time, I didn't think I was allowed to. I thought choosing myself was selfish. I thought setting boundaries meant I was pushing people away. I thought saying no meant I was letting people down. But I've come to realize there is a world of difference between being kind and being a doormat, between being generous and being self-sacrificial, between being humble and being invisible. The moment we begin to believe that our worth is tied to how well we can meet other people's expectations, we hand over our power. We place our self-esteem in their hands. And not everyone will hold it with care. Not everyone will appreciate the love we give so freely. Some will take it for granted, some will exploit it, and some will make us feel guilty for having needs of our own. And that's why it's so important to know who you are, to know your values, to know what makes your soul come alive. Because when you know yourself, you don't need others to validate you. You don't need to please them just to feel seen. And so I started reclaiming parts of myself I had buried under years of people pleasing. I started saying no, even when it was uncomfortable. I started speaking up, even when my voice trembled. I started honoring my own boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect the parts of me that are sacred. And slowly the woman in the mirror started coming back to life. Not because others finally approved of her, but because she finally approved of herself. There comes a moment in everyone's life when you stop and ask yourself, what am I really doing this all for? It's a quiet moment, often after the noise dies down, after the people you tried so hard to please have gone home, after the applause has faded. In that stillness, you start to notice the empty spaces inside you, the parts you gave away to be accepted, left behind because they made others uncomfortable, the truths you silenced just to maintain peace. That's when it hits you, not like a sudden storm, but like a slow, undeniable wave. You've been living someone else's version of your life. You see, for the longest time, I thought self-respect came after I was loved, after I was acknowledged, after people gave me permission to feel worthy. But I was wrong. Respecting yourself is not something that happens when the world finally sees your value. It starts long before that. It begins in the quiet decisions you make every day. The way you speak to yourself, the standards you hold for how others treat you, the choices you make even when no one is watching. And one day I chose to stop. I chose to stop demanding my light so others could shine comfortably. I chose to stop waiting for validation that never really felt me. Instead, I started doing something that at first felt unfamiliar. I started respecting myself, not in a loud, rebellious way. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about finally doing what felt right for me. I started honoring my boundaries, even when it made people uncomfortable. I stopped over-explaining myself to those who were committed to misunderstanding me. I stopped chasing closure from people who had already shown me they didn't value my presence. And let me be honest, it wasn't easy. Sometimes choosing yourself means walking away from people you once loved deeply. It means disappointing others who had placed you in a box they were comfortable with. It means accepting that not everyone will celebrate your growth because your evolution challenges the parts of them that are still afraid to change. But I want to tell you something. Your peace is worth the discomfort of others. Your voice is worth raising, even if it shakes. Your dreams are worth chasing, even if you have to run alone for a while. You are not on this earth to be a puppet controlled by everyone else's strings. You are not here to earn your worth by being perfect, agreeable, or endlessly self-sacrificing. You are here to live truthfully, authentically, boldly. And the beautiful thing is, the moment you begin to respect yourself, the world around you begins to shift. The people who only loved you when you were convenient for them, they start to fade. But the people who value your truth, who honor your boundaries, who cheer for your authenticity, those people begin to appear. And most importantly, you begin to appear. The real you. The one who had been buried under layers of fear, guilt, and self-doubt. when I started making decisions from a place of self-respect rather than self-doubt, my life slowly began to change. I stopped feeling exhausted from constantly trying to prove myself. I stopped needing everyone to agree with me before I trusted my own choices. I stopped feeling guilty for putting my needs first. And you know what happened? I began to feel lighter. Not because life became easier, but because I was no longer carrying the weight of pretending. There is something incredibly liberating about showing up as yourself, fully and unapologetically. It takes courage, yes, but it also brings a peace that people-pleasing never could. Because when you start to respect yourself, you no longer beg for crumbs of love, you expect a full seat at a table. You no longer wait for others to choose you. You choose yourself every single time. And that choice over and over again becomes your strength. Respecting yourself doesn't mean you stop being kind. It doesn't mean you become harsh or closed off. In fact, it deepens your compassion because you're no longer giving from a place of lack. You give from a place of fullness. You love without losing yourself in the process. You serve others while still honoring your soul. And that kind of love, that kind of authenticity, it heals everything. I know there will be days when this path feels lonely, days when you'll question if it's really worth it. But I promise you, staying true to yourself will always lead you home. Home to your values, home to your strength, home to your truth. So when people ask why you've changed, when they say you've become distant or different, just smile. Because you haven't changed. You've returned. You, yourself. And that's the most beautiful journey you'll ever take. When you stop pleasing everyone and start respecting yourself, you don't become less loving, you become more real.